So both the political parties are in disarray. They have been torn into different pieces. When you look at when we talk to Democrats, a whole lot of Democrats are upset with the way their own party is, and when I personally talk to Republicans, they have the same sentiment there. They're upset with what Trump did to their party by splitting it up in small subset groups. And they're also upset currently as a Republican. So, what is the solution to this when you consider the future and where both these political parties are headed, with so many people upset with their own party? And we have a two-party system in this country. So what is the outcome of something like this? So in my analysis, here's what's going to happen. We are more than likely going to see an advent of a third party, whether you can call it independent, what have you, but it would be a third party that would include the Republicans that are basically upset with their own party, and Democrats that are also upset because they feel like nothing is being done, and there's so many fake Democrats that have infiltrated the Democratic Party, and nothing is being done. So when they clearly see that there was a majority there in the Senate, and I'm taking that one example there. In the Senate, we had a Democratic majority there, but two individuals where I'm talking about Senator Sinema from Arizona and West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, both were able to block and hold the nation's purse strings. A $1.5 trillion bill that was basically held hostage by these two people and two individuals, and still have yet to be passed, as if this day, right, 28th of April, nothing has been done. And these two individuals held up a bill. You see the severity of it when I say it that way. Two individuals held up a bill that could have benefited hundreds and millions of dollars, hundreds and millions of people throughout the nation. But two individuals had that power to hold up a bill that had so many social programs in there and so many beneficial items in there that would have benefited so many millions and millions of Americans. Health related, social related, social services related. So when we talk to Democrats, when I personally talk to Democrats, Democrats tell me, look, I'm sick and tired of this political party, the Democrats, and the reason why they're sick and tired of it is because people like Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema from Arizona that got in there as with the pretense that they're a Democrat, they registered as a Democrat, and basically won because they received a lot of Democratic vote in Arizona and in West Virginia. Someone like Joe Manchin who pretends to be a Democrat. We clearly know he's not. By long shot, he's not a Democrat. So, and he clearly says that he pretends like he's some moderate. This whole thing about moderate Democrat or a moderate Republican. This is just absolutely an illusion. The reality is, when someone says they're moderate, they're basically belonging to a different party, whether it's the Republicans or not. So anyone that says I'm a moderate Democrat basically cannot be trusted anymore. And if they say they're a moderate Republican, they can't be trusted anymore because they're playing both sides and they have been they're being controlled by the other side. So at the other side of the aisle. So if someone, let's take the two Democrats that held up this bill and posed as Democrats. We had a 50-50 majority with the tiebreaker vote of the vice president, and we couldn't get this bill passed. Progressives were upset. Everyone was upset when you saw two individuals holding up an entire bill that had infrastructure, social services, all sorts of things in there. They started out with $2 trillion, went down to $1.5 trillion, and they still wouldn't do it. Why? Because now let's see why they couldn't do it. It's not because it was hurting their own personal financial interest there, but those entities that were threatening them that if they were to helping in passing this bill, they would simply be primaried and get voted out because it was not in their interest. Now, you could follow the money and try to see who these entities were that forced these two individuals to act the way they did. So it's not a surprise. We are seeing this thing happen over and over again where the Democrats are being infiltrated by the right, or those individuals, those principles that are basically on the right, and they're acting as a D or a Democrat and helping the other side. So if you look at Joe Manchin, he's very comfortable with the Republicans. No one wants to hang around with him. That's a Democrat. At least the real progressive Democrats wouldn't have anything to do with him. So when you watch him during the State of the Union, he was very close, kissy close with all the Republicans. Nobody on the left really wanted to hang around with him or even wanted to be seen with him. So you could see the hypocrisy there. And people like that, individuals like that who get in there simply so they can gain some power, gain power from their family, for their family members, and further their own political agendas or their own political careers. You could tell that they get in there for the wrong reasons. The reason to run for office is a noble one, to help the nation, to help the community first, your own community, your own city, your state, your own congressional district. In this case, when you are talking about West Virginia, and that's being represented by Senator Joe Manchin, who's a complete hypocrite. He got in there basically to help the Republicans, and we know that. Why would he block something that's there to help so many hundreds and millions of Americans? Obviously, someone threatened him with his position there, with his political power, and said, if you vote for this thing, you're basically out and we're going to primary you. So this is eventually going to have a reaction as far as the general public is concerned, because we're watching this. And when I say we, the general public's watching this and looking at individuals like Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema that held up the entire nation's infrastructure bill, social services bill. There was a zillion things in there that could have been that could have helped the Americans. Now this Joe Biden is doing executive orders, trying to see whatever he can get through. As far as maybe it was him that told these two that don't let it pass, so I can do a bunch of executive orders instead of a broad scale of help there. Because you can't trust Joe Biden either, because he was an establishment person for years. He was in the Senate for 40 years or so, and naturally he worked very closely with all these individuals in the Senate. So he wasn't too worried. He, appeared to have been a little upset by it, to be fair to him, but he didn't seem too ruffled by it. Like, okay, well, this is do or die for me. No, he simply wanted to do some executive orders there if this thing didn't go through, and maybe he telegraphed that to these individuals not to pass it, not to help pass it. And we know this goes on. This is not some rocket science to figure out what's going on with the political scene. People do understand how these things work. So in my analysis, a third parties do. When you when we look at what late John McCain said, he thought many years ago, I'm going back about 10, 15 years ago, is when he said that there is a need for a third party. Now, why was he saying that? Because he was a conservative, but he had a liberal streak to him, and he understood that you have to do things on behalf of the public to get things done, and both the parties are not wanting to do anything, and they're blaming it on the other. So you have the Republicans blaming it on the Democrats. Of course, they're not for the average working class. Most of the Republicans are bought and paid for by the corporations, simply looking to benefit themselves. On the Democrat side, you have maybe a handful, maybe if you really look at maybe five, that are really are on the left and progressive enough, or actually care about getting things done. You got Bernie Sanders, AOC, a few others there that are coming in, some of the fresh faces that are wanting to get things done as far as the general public is concerned. So Nancy Pelosi, God bless her, has been there for many years. When you have several $100 million to your name, we really can't expect you to feel sympathetic towards the average person. And you could say, well, she's the most powerful person in Congress. Yes, she is, but then look what's getting done there. Nothing's really getting done. Nothing is being done. Obama was barely able to pass Affordable Care Act. It was originally, in Obama's mind, it was supposed to be a single payer system, mind you. It was not what we are looking at right now, even though they're bragging about it by bringing him into the White House and having a celebration like, oh, wow, look at the long ways we have come. Yeah, we have come a little ways from where we had nothing, and now we have Affordable Care or Obamacare that's still held up there. They try to kill it 70 times or more, and they haven't been able to, because both parties are kind of realizing that you can't kill this Affordable Care Act, because it means that many individuals would lose their benefits there, having to do with pre-existing conditions and all the other benefits that the Affordable Care Act is actually providing. So it's as simple as this. And mark my words, in my analysis, a third party is brewing, and it's coming. So whether the Democrats like it or not, whether the Republicans like it or not, there's a lot of disgruntled people there. They're upset with their own party. Now, when you look at Trump, what Trump did to the Republicans, he has damaged that party so badly that the real conservative basically left and formed what they call the Lincoln Project. And to me, they're the real conservatives. Those are the Ronald Reagan conservatives, the way I see it. And that's my analysis. And God bless them for trying. And they're trying to see if they could revive that old conservative values there. Because, right after Trump came in, he caused a tremendous amount of damage to the Republicans. And now they're in damage control. But people like McCarthy, all that Senate minority leader, the House minority leader is not helping. They're kissing up to Donald Trump because they feel like he's the future of the party, and he frankly is not the future of the party. Okay, if the conservatives don't get their party back, basically everyone is in the Republican Party is looking at creating a third party. Now, the third party would be inclusive of the Democrats and Republicans that are basically trying to get things done and are fed up of nothing being done and having two individuals hold up an entire bill. So imagine that, guys. $1.5 trillion or so started out with $2.1 trillion, $2.2 trillion, and then it comes down to $1.5 trillion and still nothing. Why? Because two individuals were told, and I say this clearly, were told by their donors, by their campaign donors, do not let this pass. Now, if Biden was in on it because he wanted to do a bunch of executive orders, I can understand that. But how many items can you pass in the executive order? He could sit there and do executive orders all day long. That's fine. But then things like the insulin that was supposed to be $35 instead of $800 was also in that bill. Now we need to have that done. There's a lot of other social programs there that need to get done. And when it comes down to it, we're looking at Americans being hurt in this thing, whether they're Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. They're being hurt. So an advent of a third party is absolutely necessary at this point, and I think it is going to happen. I can tell by looking at the climate, the political climate, that a third party is brewing and is going to happen. And it will clearly threaten both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. It will clearly threaten both of them, and that's probably what both parties need at this point to straighten up and get back on track and say, okay, difference of opinion is good. This is how our nation was founded. Our Constitution was created with a difference of opinions there. But having a complete block, a complete wall in the middle where the one party is blaming the other for not getting it done, that kind of a gridlock is not acceptable anymore, because we are 320 million strong as a nation and growing. And we need to have healthcare. We have to have loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness for all these individuals that are looking to file bankruptcy. And they can't get away, even after a bankruptcy, you can't get away from a student loan. So it's not something that the bankruptcy is going to help them as far as student loans. They're simply going to help their situation by not paying other bills so they can pay these student loans. And this is why people are looking to file bankruptcy as far as student loans are concerned. The student loans never go away. We know that. And then this system of student loans, of where the government is borrowing the money from the super wealthy so they can loan it to the students with an interest, right? Because the rich don't want to pay any taxes, is absolutely ridiculous and eventually has to stop. So it is the likelihood of a third party and the creation of a third party is not imaginary anymore. It is very real, and it is happening. And it within the next 4 to 5 years, even before this 2024 election, we're going to see a third party threatening both the parties in this nation, the Democrat and Republicans, because both of them have lost their soul. The Democrats have lost their soul, and the Republicans basically are no longer recognizable. I remember many years ago, the Republican Party that I knew, the conservatives that I knew, I may have disagreed with them, but we still realize that this is healthy to have to disagree with someone and try to compromise with them, which is how our nation was founded, under a compromise. Imagine the Jeffersons and the Washingtons and the Madisons absolutely said, my way or the highway, or we can't get anything done, because the other side wouldn't compromise. We wouldn't have a constitution. We wouldn't have a nation right now. We would have balkanized into many groups at that point, and fell apart right after the Confederate was being dissolved at that point, Confederation. So it was a loose alliance and it fell apart because it was not really something that could hold up in the future. So moving forward, 240 years later, we are looking at two parties that are basically controlling, but they're blaming it on the other and saying, well, nothing is getting done because the other side won't let them do it. So at that point, you must have a third party that comes in and threatens both. And eventually, once it threatens both, I think both those parties, Democrats and Republicans, will rejuvenate themselves and find their own true soul there and say, well, let's get something done on behalf of the 320 million people out there that are being held hostage and nothing is getting done. So, and imagine that two individuals, I want you to think about this, two individuals, Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema from Arizona, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, held up $1.5 trillion bill. Think about it. That itself enrages individuals to say, I'm an independent, I'm going to go out there and see what I can do and try to be part of an independent group that can threaten both of these parties. Because you have way too many people that have infiltrated the Democratic Party, posing as Democrats. They simply just registered as Democrats and ran as a Democrat. In reality, when you look at Joe Manchin is not a Democrat. We know that. Everyone knows that. Sinema is not a Democrat. She just registered as one because she knew, well, I think I'll get enough votes. And then those individuals that donated to her simply wanted her to go to Senate and block whatever it is that they could. That was their intention when they supported someone like Senator Sinema, which I hope she gets primaried and I hope she's voted out of office. And the same needs to be done with Joe Manchin. He's a Democrat by name only. He's not a Democrat by any means. He clearly said that if they want to elect, if they want more progressive things done, they need to elect more progressives out there. Well, I hope the citizens of West Virginia vote him out of office and basically put someone there that can help the nation, not hurt the nation. You can't have West Virginia holding up the entire nation's purse strings. You can't have that. No more than you can have California doing that to the rest of the nation, or New York doing it, or any other state doing it. We are part of a union, and we need to understand that we are serving the entire nation. So if a senator is elected from a specific state, he or she has to realize, I am not just a senator of West Virginia or Arizona or California or New York. I am working on behalf of the entire nation. We are a union. So someone elected in New York is also working on behalf of the people in Alaska or people in Oregon or people in Colorado. That doesn't mean he's just elected for those individuals in New York. This is something that most politicians fail to see. But they're bought and paid for by corporate interests. They're basically corporatist Democrats and corporatist Republicans. Of course, we know Republicans always, are supported. The candidates are supported by the very, multinationals that put them in office there and say, hey, look, block this, block that. Anything that hurts us, block it. So it's not about the public anymore. It's about the corporations. And eventually, even the corporations are going to realize that we can't do this to the general public. We are going to have to pass social programs. We are growing as a nation, and there are some requirements, education requirements, healthcare requirements. We have immigration requirements. We have a lot of things that we are looking to get done, but we can't get done because both of the parties are bought and paid for by corporations, and they're actually not allowing these individuals to pass anything. So that said, yet to see where the third party, how the third party comes in, but my analysis is by 2024 we're going to see a ton of movement towards a third party, and will hopefully get things done as far as passing legislation and not being held up by two individuals.